The Order 1886 is a conflicted kind of game. Developer Ready at Dawn has been very vocal about their ambitions. They wanted to create a story-driven game with a cinematic experience, a Victorian setting with futuristic-like weapons. Oh, and it's on the PlayStation 4. With the developer's previous work being on the PSP, the ambitions were definitely high with this title. And now that it's here, it's time to finally break down what makes the Order so conflicted with its goals. The year is 1886, London. You are Sir Galahad, a knight part of the Order. The Order is a group formed centuries ago by King Arthur as a means to fight the game's antagonists. Throughout this alternate history of the game, there are these humans that are called half-breeds. They can morph into wolf-like creatures, and there has been an ongoing war against these half-breeds. The story largely focuses on the Order and their fight against the half-breeds and rebels. Rebels being another enemy in the game that are against the Order's current goals. The story initially starts out very slow, but eventually it does pick up and becomes really compelling. The only odd part is the unusual pacing. The game is set in chapters, and they aren't really spread out that well. And if you aren't a fan of games that end with a lot of unanswered questions, then be prepared for that here.
If one of you ladies would reach into my pocket.
Give it here, love.
Is it sufficient, monsieur?
More than sufficient, I'd say.
There are a few things that the Order gets right, and the one it absolutely shines in is presentation. This is without a doubt one of the best looking video games ever. Period. Of course, this review is speaking for right now, and surely something along the line may look better, but there is simply no denying how unbelievably good this game looks, and it's a true showcase for what can be achieved in games, consoles, and specifically the PlayStation 4. I couldn't count how many times I was unaware that gameplay had started in this game after a cutscene. The transition is that seamless, and the visuals stay consistent throughout. From the anti-aliasing to the lighting to the textures, the polish is just phenomenal. Of course, a lot of that wouldn't mean much if the graphics aren't displaying a compelling universe. Luckily, that's something the Order does well too. The Victorian setting is wonderfully realized. Everything from the setting to the characters stays truly authentic to the era. Aside from the advanced engineering and the werewolves, but hey, this is still a game. There's also the inclusion of Nikola Tesla and a nod to the Ripper killings. It all just works very well together. Ready at Dawn has also opted for a display ratio of 1920 by 800, which adds black bars to the entire game for most home displays. This isn't entirely unusual, other games have opted for similar aspect ratios. This didn't bother me personally, especially when the main benefit to it was increased anti-aliasing, and to me it really does add to that cinematic feel. Speaking of which, Ready at Dawn has gotten a lot of flack for using that phrase, but I will be damned if they didn't absolutely nail that feeling. The problem with the Order, which is kind of a big deal, is gameplay, a pretty big part of video games. In all honesty, most of it is just fine. The game has very standard third-person shooting mechanics. Duck, vault over, aim, shoot, run, take more cover, shoot. It works, and there's nothing broken. In fact, a lot of the guns are really fun to use, like the thermite gun, which shoots a spray and then you ignite the spray with fire with a secondary aim. So in a sense, it's good. There's just nothing exceptional about it, which I don't personally need. I don't expect or require some groundbreaking new mechanics, just ones that work. But an inherent issue with the gameplay is that often at times, it's very stiff, almost claustrophobic. It's tough to describe. But the game is very set in stone in what you can and can't do. You will be forced to walk a lot. You will be forced to not vault over a certain object. There are lots of invisible walls. Now yes, the game is very linear in that there is one straight path to follow, and that's not a negative. Games are allowed to be linear. But for here, in certain combat situations, I found myself always struggling to get comfortable with the environment. Something as simple as climbing a ledge felt so rigid, as if I had to press X in just the right spot and push the stick forward in just the right motion to trigger a long 10-second animation of Galahad climbing up or something. Perhaps the biggest issue with the gameplay are the stealth sections. If you get spotted just once, you are instantly killed. This would be kind of okay if you could reasonably dispatch the enemies, but they seem to catch you at unfair vantage points. And by the time you do get to an enemy, sometimes the button prompt to kill that enemy won't even come up. There's a difference between challenging and frustrating, and the stealth here is definitely frustrating. QuickTime events also play a big role here. Not only are they in many cutscenes, but they are often used to advance certain sections where more interaction definitely would have been better. Like rushing a room filled with 3 enemies. Instead of bursting in, aiming, and shooting, you press a few prompts to watch a lot of fancy fighting moves. I don't have a problem with QuickTime events, but I also don't want to fully relinquish my control to them for everything. Other than that, it's worth noting the game is on the shorter side, with little replay value. That doesn't make this a bad game, but it's definitely something to consider when you're looking at buying this game for a certain price.
There's still much that I have to find out for myself.
I hope you know what you are doing. It seems that the Council grows wary of your defiance.
The Order is not what it once was, Grayson.
Yes, you've said that much before.
Patience, old friend. All in due time.
I like The Order 1886. In fact, I'm glad I played it. I had a lot of fun, I enjoyed the story, and I constantly awed at how good it looked. I didn't find the gameplay exceptional, but it worked most of the time, and I do know for a lot of people that isn't enough. The bigger question I have is what would this game be like if Ready at Dawn matched the quality of gameplay to the current presentation and visuals? If that were the case, this title would be beautifully outstanding, but instead, it's beautifully regular.